All right, my name is Sarah Cashman. I'm married to him. I have a master's degree in history. I specialize in studying people in crisis situations. So I studied martyrs and what made people want to die for things. And now I work as a 911 telecommunicator, and so I talk to people in crisis.
It's not really changing careers that much there.
No, I'm applying what I learned in history.
So tell them what the inspiration was for this panel. I think it's good to start there.
Okay, so you might wonder why I'm up here wanting to talk about fans and development. Well, I caught COVID last July, and so I was really ill and spent the entire time watching a lot of gaming YouTube channels. Mostly Final Fantasy 14 because that's my game of choice, and I did not feel well enough to play it. And that was right about when all of the thing with Blizzard hit, the lawsuit from California and everything. So I watched a lot of the game news on that. And fan blaming came up, and I started looking into that and asking a whole bunch of questions on that. And so when we were talking about, hey, what should we do panels on? I was like, well, I want to talk about this and learn some more about that. So this kind of developed out of that, and some of our examples may lean towards that because that was the 2 weeks where I was really engaged in that.
A little bit on Blizzard tonight, so apologies for anyone here who is a fan of Blizzard. But I'm sorry, they asked for it, and they're in the news, and other game companies have done this before too, we know. So Riot Games, you're next.
It just happened to be when I was sick. That's what was going on.
So there are going to be a lot of our examples here, because what we're going to look at here is, and since my field is communication, I'm interested in the communication. How are these game companies, how are these media giants talking to fans? Specifically, not audiences, fans. People who are actually invested, engaged, and are interested in what they're doing, not just the Joe Q public who buys their goods and moves on. And so that's what we're going to be looking at. And the assumption we're going to begin with here is that fans are a little bit different than a general audience. Just a little bit. They are part of that audience, but there's some differences there. And that should impact the kind of communication you have, because that impacts the relationship that big media producers, game developers have with the people who consume their products. And so what we're going to be looking at is bad communication. So we're going to look at some of the things they have done bad, and then we'll talk about some good communication, all right? So what are some constructive ways that these companies can communicate with us and as fans, and how can we communicate to them in a positive manner too? Because in the end, our goals are too terribly different. We both want something to succeed, right? If we're a fan of Star Wars, we want to see a good Star Wars movie. We would love a good Star Wars movie, you know? Right? Or whatever your jam happens to be. So let's dive in. Fans. What is a fan? Well, I'm going to start there. The term fan comes from the word fanatic. And it was used to describe sports enthusiasts, especially in the start of the early 1900s and pretty much on in today. And it's still generally mainstream to be a sports fan. It's perfectly fine. But the term has come to kind of expand to include people who are really actively interested in and engage with other media products. So Star Trek, Star Wars, video games, Overwatch, WoW, all of that have fans. And fans are a little bit different from your general audience. I'm going to be pulling from Henry Jenkins here. Oops, jumping ahead. I'm going to be pulling a little bit from Henry Jenkins here, who's written extensively on this. He's a media professor from MIT. And he talks a lot about how fans, the relationship between a media producer and a fan is a little bit different in the sense that fans are a more actively, shall we say, not just engaged, but they're more actively invested, socially, culturally, intellectually, and so on and so forth. And that there's a range of fan behaviors in terms of how they will interact with that investment. And those ranges from very small, low level, right? So we'll buy their products, we'll go to their movies, we'll play their video games, to going a little bit further here, we might write fan fiction, we might create mods, we might get involved in the community. And so there's a range from, low-level fandom to kind of a little creepy but crazy fandom, but there's a range of engagement there. And traditionally, media companies have not known what to do with fans. They kind of just lumped them into the same category they have with audiences. They're like, they're going to treat all audiences as this one lump sum. Here, boom, right? And that has resulted in 3 basic responses in terms of how these companies have reacted to fan participation, what Henry Jenkins calls textual poaching, because you take something of that text, whether it's that game or whether it's this movie or this fictional character, and it becomes kind of part of who you are. It resonates with you in a deep way, so that you really become hurt when you see a bad Batman movie. You're like, how'd they ruin Batman? It's so hard. You don't have to do much. Adam West tried and didn't. Right? So there are 3 basic responses that media producers have done. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you to talk a little bit about them. So here's our first one.
All right, so one of the first things media producers will do in response to fans is they may try to control it. This is generally a negative response, but they're seeing the fan as a threat. So they'll look at them for litigation, banning. So take, for instance, a while back, Nintendo. There were all these Let's Plays that came out, and for a while they campaigned to put IP strikes on every single Nintendo video they found on YouTube. And I think they still will if things get too popular. My son was telling me earlier about Pokemon Uranium. It was like a player-made game that involved the nuclear type of Pokemon, and it had its own whole world, owned everything with this new type of Pokemon, but they didn't like that. It's also like where Disney will sue anything. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see them suing a 6-year-old child for making a Mickey Mouse costume.
Now, they did sue a daycare center for having a Winnie the Pooh picture on a wall.
See, would not be surprised to see them going after a child, even. They're very, very protective of their IP. So in this way, they try to control it. That's generally not a very positive way to respond to it. Another thing that media producers will do is they'll just ignore it.
You do you.
Yeah, just do whatever you want. They won't try to negatively engage with it. They just kind of pretend it's not there. This isn't exactly good. I mean, it sounds like it's not as bad as trying to control, but if you think about it, if you're not engaging with your fans, they may become disinterested eventually and disengaged, and then they don't buy your product anymore. They move on to another fandom that's more interesting or more engaging to them. So in the end, it's still not a very positive thing. And the last one is they actually interact. And it's where they actually kind of pursue this relationship or encourage that. You can see that with like Halo, red versus blue. They've generally encouraged that, I believe.
They did?
Can you confirm that?
Yeah, no. I mean, Microsoft partnered with them and said, hey, we'll put some of your videos on our game, They're like, yeah, this is great stuff.
Yeah, I'm the one person in our entire group of friends that hasn't actually watched it. So I know, I'm familiar with it, but... and other things, it's like, I know... I do a lot of cosplay, and I follow a lot of cosplayers. I know for a while, Kamui Cosplay was actually hired by Blizzard to appear as some of their characters at their conventions. Or I met a cosplayer named Fevron.
It's in Atlanta.
Back in the day. She's based out of Atlanta. She had a table in Artist Alley at Anime USA in 2008. And I had my first art table then. And so we kind of chatted a little bit. Well, she had designed this really cool Assassin's Creed costume, and it had this really cool flip thing on her arm that would flip the night out. Well, she ended up partnering with Ubisoft so that her cosplay stuff would be licensed through them in their shop or whatnot. And she helped them design stuff, like pursued that further, and that was actually really cool. So they actually worked with cosplayers she was just a fan of the game. She made this cool thing, and they were like, hey, I think that's cool too, and then partnered to actually make more fans happy overall. So that's, I feel like, a really positive thing, because if you're interacting with your fans, you're actually you're making your product better as a business you know, your goal is to sell things and make money, so you make more money, and your fans are happy. So like that's a good relationship, I think.
And we're in an age right now where we can communicate. You know, social media has made it so that pretty much everybody has a public platform, for good or ill. And we can talk with them, we can talk with each other. I mean, in days past, if you wanted to talk with other fans apart from your immediate friend group, guess what? You had to come to conventions like this. Hi, see you once a year, you know? And so we're now at a time where it's possible. And so that kind of interaction is going to become more and more prevalent and important. So let's look at how it can go wrong.
Well, actually, to kind of add on that, that's part of why we're doing this panel, is because, I mean, there's been fans of things for a long, long time. Like, that's not a new concept. But with the way the internet is now, we have avenues of communication that just, I think, change the relationship between fans and producers. And if they continue to ignore or try to control fans, we're going to go somewhere else. And that's going to change how their companies run, I think. Like, it's going to have more of an impact trending that way.
So we're going to start with the producers first. Here's our first one. Fan hating. You know, there are people who create great art and then hate it. They hate their work. You know, the stories are full of media producers who've written this thing that people loved. Like the guy who wrote Winnie the Pooh, he hated Winnie the Pooh, right? Alan Moore hates everything that people do with his stuff. He really does. And so there's some people who just really hate their work. And sometimes that expands into hating the people who like their work. So I'm going to use a Star Wars example here. Alec Guinness, the guy who originally played Obi-Wan Kenobi way back in the day on the first few movies, he told a story in his autobiography where he was approached by a 6-year-old kid who wanted his autograph. And Alec Guinness is like, all right, fine, sure, whatever, for Obi-Wan. And the kid said to him, I've seen Star Wars over 100 times. And Alec Guinness turned to the kid and said, okay, I'll sign your sheet, but on one condition. I don't want you to ever watch Star Wars again. He got chewed out by the kid's mom, because the kid burst into tears, right? And, you know, there's this kind of fan hating is not common, but it does sometimes happen. And there's stories, you know, a lot of people have been accused of it. This usually takes the form of name-calling, stereotyping, and or even sometimes sabotaging their own work. A couple of people who have been accused of this include Brie Larson, George R.R. Martin, and the game designer Jonathan Blow. Now, I'm not going to say whether they actually did this or not, okay? I'm not going to get into that argument or that debate. But really, this is probably the most egregious kind of behavior, is when you get into this kind of name-calling, this kind of hurtful commentary, because who the heck wants to buy something from someone who hates you? Or even talk to that person, or engage with that person, or get their autograph, right? So a couple of examples of this that we've seen. Asmongold. You know, you guys familiar with him? Some of you? He's a longtime Twitch streamer. He made his living, I think, doing mostly World of Warcraft Twitch streaming. Over the summer, he started moving away from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV and a few other places. And all right, so I got to get this guy's name right. When he announced this, Adam Holinsky, who is, I think, Blizzard's lead project manager, tweeted that Asmongold is an asshole, and we are better off without him. Gee, that's nice. Or how about this one? Blizzard, gonna go with Blizzard again on this one. Okay, so a guy named Totalbiscuit.
This was BioWare. BioWare, not Blizzard.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is BioWare. BioWare, sorry. Yep, you're right. This is not Blizzard. BioWare. Totalbiscuit was a YouTube personality and a game reviewer. He died last year. And when he died, a BioWare employee named David Crooks took to Twitter to trash talk the reviewer and say how the world is better off without him. These are both examples of fan hating, because both of these people really like the products that these companies produced.
I mean, to be fair, they weren't necessarily nice, and they were very critical of some of that stuff.
They are pretty critical, and if you've ever listened to Asmongold, he doesn't hold punches. He's pretty abrasive, you know. But still, was this appropriate? Absolutely not. So there's our first one here, is fan hating, bad behavior. Here's our next one. Are you taking this one?
Yeah, I'm going to do this one.
You're taking this one. Okay.
Communication pattern. The idea that businesses approach communication as its only business. You're there to buy my product.
Basically treating the fan as just a consumer.
I mean, we get it. These producers are businesses. They want to make a profit at the end of the day. That is their goal. So, but that's not, I mean, I think that's been how a lot of businesses traditionally ran things. Like if you think back, okay, when the old 8-bit Nintendo came out, that was my day of gaming.
Again, revealing how old we are.
Yeah, there wasn't this avenue of communication like we have now. It was like, we like the game, we go buy it, and that was pretty much it. But now we're gonna use this Battlefront 2 Star Wars game example here, because what they did, people accused them of trying to monetize the game to the point where
you couldn't get Darth Vader unless you paid.
They put the characters you'd want, a lot of the content was behind paywalls.
Right.
So if you want Darth Vader, you had to pay for it. If you want...
this is EA, by the way.
Yeah.
Electronic
Arts.
Yeah. Even Disney told them to knock it off. And Disney's not exactly, you know, the kindest of businesses either.
I mean, yeah, they're pretty cool for making money too. But I was trying to find the quote here.
Oh, I got it. It's right here.
All right,
so this was their response when people complained.
Yeah, the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. As for costs, we selected initial values based upon data from the open beta and other adjustments made to milestone rewards before launch. Among other things, we're looking at average per player credit earn rates on a daily basis, and we'll be making constant adjustments to assure that players have challenges that are compelling, rewarding, and of course, attainable via gameplay. But if they've unlocked most of their content and characters behind paywalls, is that really an accomplishment if you just pull out your credit card?
This is business jargon.
Yeah, and it's a lot of business jargon. Like, this is how they're talking to their fans. This is what they posted to the general public, which includes their fans. So this is kind of how they're talking and engaging with them. I would be annoyed by that.
As an amusing note, this has the most downvotes on Reddit. This post has the most, with over 680,000.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It just says, shut up, give me your money.
Yeah, and that was what people accused them of after that. Another one to kind of add to this, a few years ago, do you remember what year it was for Blizzard?
It was 2018.
Okay, yeah, BlizzCon in 2018, Blizzard's big and new game announcement was for the Diablo mobile game. That was openly disappointing to fans. Like, they got a few boos. They're like, well, why aren't you excited about this? You have phones. This is going to be accessible to you. But, like, this was their big game. Like, we kind of expected a little more. And, I mean, there's an understanding that a lot of mobile games are really just cash grabs. Like, and they weren't even doing the game. It was being sent to a third-party company. And I'm like...
It's scheduled to come out later this year. It will be interesting to see how it's received.
Yeah, kind of curious on that.
I'm curious.
I mean, supposedly they have changed things. I know when people went to look at their first screenshots and then compared it to what this other company had made, they were kind of pretty much the same.
It was reskins.
It was like a reskin of their original game. So a lot of people were like, okay, how is this the game we actually want to see? And is this the best thing you're going to give us this year? That's it. But yeah, that they're just offering a mobile game. Are they really interested in engaging with their fans, or do they just want your money?
Yeah. Okay, here's our third one. So, it's my art. This is kind of like It's My Business, except instead of caring about the money, it's about, I am an artist. How dare you? Right. So, you know, this is like the kid who invites you over to their house to play with their toys, but they play with them and you get to watch. You know? It's my art. Anybody who disagrees can leave. Roger Ebert, you know, the great late film critic, once said video games aren't art. I disagree. Films are art. And we have our fair share of artists. But if we lean too heavily on the art side, we end up becoming like pretentious jerks, like they have in some of the art communities here. So I'm going to pick on I'm going to butcher his name. Hideo Kojima? Kojima! I'm going to pick on Kojima here. Okay, so here's Kojima. He made a film, 2019. You probably know this guy. He made Metal Gear series. He's a pretty good film. I mean, he's a good game maker. He really is. But he just needs to stop talking publicly. I'm sorry. I know there's another panel talking about how he predicts the future, but if you look at all the things he said, yes, even a stopped clock is right twice a day, right? Anyways, he came at this game, Death Stranding, and it kind of got mediocre reviews. And, you know, it's not a bad game, but it kind of got mediocre reviews, so he was asked about it. So this is what he told the press. Maybe this is a game that is difficult to understand for a certain type of critic or audience. Americans are big fans of first-person shooters, and Death Stranding is not. It is flying higher. I always try to create new things, and disputes and discussions are fine, but it must be said that the Italians and French have a different artistic sensibility that allows them to appreciate this kind of very original products. Oh. You know what's funny is that the low reviews this game got didn't come from the American reviewers. It actually came from the overseas ones. The lowest review it got was from IGN. But it came, which is an American company, but the review came out of their Australian office. In fact, the Americans were actually kind of positive towards this game. So, Hideo, you're kind of jumping on some stereotypes here, right? You're insulting your fans needlessly. You could have just said, some work, some don't, and move on. But no, I'd say, it's my art. Okay. Okay, now. Here's number 4. This is a big one.
Yeah.
I'm blaming.
So when I was sick last July, this is something that came up a bunch. A lot of people were throwing this word around, and I started looking into it. It seems like it's fairly contentious. Like, a lot of people aren't sure it's even really a thing. But I think it could be. And so.
This was kind of cool because this is a new term that's really starting to emerge. There's some new research, I think. Possibilities here. Those of you who are scholars, this is an area that's worth exploring.
Yeah, and so what we decided to do at this point was to try and maybe give some definition to it, because there really isn't one out there. And I just found it really fascinating as a form of communication. So it's a recent term. It's a cross between gaslighting, which is a form of abuse used by abusers to twist a victim's sense of reality, or deny something and tell them that they're just too sensitive or they don't remember it correctly, make them doubt themselves. And then victim blaming, which is attributing responsibility for a criminal act to the victim, at least on some level. So, and it assumes 2 things. One, that there is a relationship. So to even say this is a thing, we have to assume that there is a relationship between the company and their fans. And also that someone is a victim of some kind of wrongdoing. I mean, and victims used loosely here. Legally, this kind of verbal engagement, you can't litigate it. No, it's not like a criminal.
Gaslighting is not illegal.
No, and so gaslighting is not illegal. It is, you can't go to jail for it. It is not a nice thing to do. But it's a term to kind of describe bad communication. So I think it's worth exploring this, because as we are developing more interactions between these developers and the fans, being able to understand what bad communication looks like and is in a clear sense is, I think, a very worthwhile thing.
I'll give the brief history on this one. I found that this term was first started throwing around with Rian Johnson's The Last Star Wars, or Last Jedi. And that it was, you know, because they were blaming, they said that he did some fan blaming, and that's why the movie wasn't well received, and that's why Solo flopped so horribly in the box office. I couldn't find anything that he actually said that actually fell into fan blaming. So I'm not sure if he actually engaged in that, but that's where the term started to get thrown around. Now we're seeing it a little more recently. We saw it a lot if you were paying attention to Kevin Smith and the new He-Man series on Netflix. To give you an idea, he told his critics to grow the fuck up. Sorry, I had to use the cuss word there. But that's what he said in the interviews. When concerns arose that he was making a show about a side character and not and not He-Man. And then when the show came out, it was about a side character and not He-Man, and he blew up and denied that he said anything against it. And it became a real big clusterfuck, I'm sorry. It was just a big mess. It really was. However, we can see it in game companies too. In 2017, Blizzard, they blamed the slow development of Overwatch content on toxic players. No, seriously, they did. Basically, they were too busy policing the community to create new content. Now, all groups, now Kevin Smith included, will say, I'm not engaging in fan blaming, I'm only blaming a small group of toxic people, not all fans, right? But when you use the term broadly like that, it kind of gets, you know.
It's your game. It's, for example, the Overwatch one, it's the Overwatch community, which if you play Overwatch, you are part of the Overwatch community. So it's your game, your community. And so whether you're contributing to the actual toxicity there, you're still part of that. And now you're being lumped in with the toxic players.
So your game is stagnating because your community sucks.
And that's your fault.
And that's your fault, right? You're shaking your head. You should be. Right? Exactly. But that's what people hear.
And, you know, that's a great way to draw new players, right?
Oh, yeah.
No. Yeah. Or keep the ones you have. I mean, who wants to be talked to like that?
Certainly not I. So let's dive in.
Okay, so I wanted to, that's a little bit of history of where the term came from. I was going to actually break down what gaslighting is and what victim blaming is and how it can apply to these situations maybe. So gaslighting, we pulled out 6 things that...
this is what therapists say.
Yeah, from psychology that actually define what gaslighting is. One is withholding. So they refuse to listen to concerns, or if they recognize them at all, they kind of pretend not to understand them or misunderstand them intentionally. They do countering. That's questioning the target's memory, challenging remembered details of the incident. It's like, did that really happen that way? I kind of remember it happening this way. And a lot of times what they say they remember isn't even accurate. It's like a lie. There's denial or forgetting.
That never happened.
Yeah, they'll deny it ever happened, or they'll just kind of conveniently forget about key details. And if they're constantly, well, that didn't happen, or it'll make you kind of doubt what you remember. Another is blocking or diversion, changing the subject, shifty distraction. Well, let's look at this instead. Often that it will actually turn it back around on the victim and make them question their own credibility. Another is trivializing. You're just making a big deal about this. Like, okay, this might be a thing, but you're really blowing this out of proportion. You're overly sensitive. It's, you know, that kind of thing. And then another thing we kind of pulled out is that they will reframe the incident. So they will reframe it so that they're actually the victim, either through redirecting, blame someone else, or blame the victim, or whatever. So those are the 6 things we identified from that. That last one kind of goes into victim blaming, because now they've turned themselves into the victim and they're blaming the real victim for the problem. Victim blaming in psychology is used usually in context of actual assault and rape. So it's someone who is the victim of a criminal act. a lot of victim blaming from when I was doing research on this is actually unintentional. It is a self-defense mechanism that people do to not feel threatened so that they stay feeling safe. So this person only got assaulted because they went to the wrong section of town. Like if they'd taken a different route, if they'd not put themselves in that situation, this wouldn't have happened to them. Which comes from a kind of mistaken idea that bad things only happen to bad people or stupid people. That's not true. No. Like bad things can happen to almost anyone. It just happens. I mean.
And so fan blaming is an interesting blending of these two. Mm-hmm. And it's being applied in a very different kind of situation, because think about it. The victim blaming is usually used in terms of criminal activities, and gaslighting is usually used in terms of domestic abuse between like romantic partners or between a boss and their employee.
Yeah.
Can we really do this with a business and the fans?
So that's kind of where I was.
Question.
So
you know?
What I'm going to pull this out with right now is I'm going to pull out the whole lawsuit with California that came out, because I'm more familiar with that. I mean, like I literally spent my entire time sick watching game news stuff on it, because I couldn't go to work, couldn't do anything except sit there. So this is the incident I'm most familiar with. So a brief summary. This past summer, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued Blizzard over sexual harassment. I don't really want to draw this out because a lot of their responses actually could clearly fall into this if you look at how they treated their victims and how they responded to that. But I don't want to go there. I'm trying to look at how this makes fans feel, or how their public statements impacts fans.
So how did they communicate? Not with their employees, because clearly there's a legal issue there.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole other bag. How do they communicate to the community? Because I don't know about you, but a lot of people in the Blizzard community were very upset by this.
Yeah. I mean, I found out about this because they all went to Final Fantasy and made videos about Final Fantasy, and I was watching those videos because that was the game I played.
Yeah.
I did play World of Warcraft many years ago, and I remember enjoying the game.
It was a fun game.
I just don't play it anymore. I play this other game. One incident, we quoted the New York Times from this one, where Blizzard said, and I'm reading this so I make sure I get it accurate. They said, California failed to discuss the accusations with Blizzard before suing and chiding the agency for bringing up an employee's suicide. It is this type of irresponsible behavior from unaccountable state bureaucrats that are driving many of the state's best businesses out of California. Okay, so what does that really have to do with anything? Like, you're like, this is California's fault for even doing this in the first place. That's like clearly redirection, blocking, kind of denying, kind of just.
It's reframing it too.
Yeah, and reframing themselves as a victim of California being mean. But if the allegations are correct or there, that they should have done something, like that was a very valid thing to do.
Yeah, we're not going to comment on the legal case here. So yeah. I don't know whether they did or did not.
But these are this is their public statement. This is what they're saying, again, to the general public, which includes their fans. Like, this is what they're telling their fans.
Yeah.
That you really need to be mad at California, not us.
Here's a few more.
Let's see. Denial. They issued a statement saying that the DFEH, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, is painting a picture that is not the Blizzard workplace of today. So what they're saying isn't accurate. This is no longer what Blizzard's like. Maybe it was at one point in time, but it's not now, so it's no longer valid. So kind of a denial of what's going on. Like, they're not painting a truthful picture. They mention that in cases related to misconduct, action was taken to address the issue. That's kind of like withholding.
They never said what action.
Yeah.
And I was not able to find anything where they actually listed, here's what we're going to do to fix this. It was, we are going to take action.
I mean, there really isn't misconduct going on, but if there was, we've taken action to take care of it.
Yeah, it's already taken care of. We finished it 3 years ago.
So that's why they're suing you now.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like after a 2-year investigation, California wouldn't have actually sued if they didn't have some evidence to follow through with it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know these things.
Yeah, well, we're not.
And a lot of fans commented that, well, what did you do? Did you actually do something? Do I really want to be defending you? And even though I really like this game and I want this to be a good game, but you're doing this. And it affects trust. It affects confidence in the game. Another quote said that it is not our place to judge when we have achieved our goals. Okay, those of us in leadership understand that it is not our place to judge when we have achieved our goals. I kind of have trouble with that because isn't that what your job as a leader is
to determine the goals and determine whether you've accomplished
I mean,
them.
isn't like the SMART goals like a business buzz thing where you have these specific, measurable, attainable,
achievable,
and in a time base so you know when you've met your goals?
Or do you just not have any?
It kind of makes you wonder. I'm like, no, actually,
or are we telling you our goals?
And then they says like, but rather it is for our team and our community to let us know when we still have more to do. So it's the community, it's your job as fans and part of the community to tell us when we need to do more stuff.
Like we knew how you were treating your employees?
Like, that's not common knowledge, public knowledge. Anyways, so that's where I kind of like, this is, I don't know if fan blaming is exactly the right term, but there's clearly some bad communication going on here. We could also go into, I think a few months ago, they tried to create this special community with forum, like so they could get feedback from their community.
But you had to be invited to it.
But yeah, and they've kicked out most anyone that disagreed with what they were doing, from what I've heard. So I'm like, how is this actually possible?
Good communication.
Yeah. And then, of course, the whole victim blaming thing where they turned the thing on California.
Yeah.
So, again, at the very best, this is really bad public relations. And so I'm not even going to try to say that they were blaming the women that came forward, but they clearly tried to shift the blame to California, and its elected officials frame themselves as a victim. And I mean, of course, as a business, they're not going to want to make this like, hey, big headline. We don't want you to really focus and think about it, but
I mean, that's good PR. They don't want us to think sexual harassment equals Activision Blizzard, right? No, we don't. They don't want that either.
Yeah. But so we were just like, are they engaging in some kind of this kind of bad communication towards their fans? And is this really productive for their company?
But we have some questions about this. If we can really apply fan blaming here, especially using this definition of gaslighting and victim blaming. And there's some good questions here.
First, gaslighting in and of itself, it requires some kind of interpersonal relationship. It's usually between an employee, an employer, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, parent, child. There's a kind of interpersonal relationship. And I think part of what we're trying to argue is when you really look at communication now with internet, global forums, Twitter, things like that, we have access to those people that we didn't have before. And I think the relationship is changing. I think it's still early. As a historian, we look at trends that cover 50, 60, 70, 100 years. So this is all still very new.
But it refers to, I mean, this kind of thing does refer to an emotional and psychological relationship. And we made that argument at the beginning that fans kind of have that. They're on this weird spectrum between audience and friend. They're not quite one, and they're not quite entirely the other. They're somewhere in between, right? And so can this happen to fans? Yes, more so, I think, than a general audience.
Yeah, I mean, if you say things that are unsatisfying, don't give you the information or reassurance they want. Like, I think out of all of this, fans of the game would have liked to have seen reassurance that the company really was improving, dedicating themselves to producing good content for them, that this wasn't going to affect their game or anything like that.
I think they changed some paintings in World of Warcraft so they weren't sexually scantily clad women, they were bowls of fruit. Yeah. I think that was one of the changes they made.
I personally don't understand how that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But again, I play Final Fantasy 14, where most people play with their characters in their underpants. To be honest, they do. And so I'm like, so changing the picture on the wall is going to change what?
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, moving on.
Well, no, not quite yet.
Moving on?
Not quite yet. I think gaslighting at its heart is a form of control. That's what it is. That's what a gaslighter does. It's an abuse. It is a form of control. Yep. It's a way of controlling the relationship. And it's a harken back to that one first response that we talked about earlier, where the game company is trying to control not just the communication, but the relationship. Again, potential. There is potential there. Now, there is a question. Aren't these just good business practices? Deny, dismiss, and run, right?
It's just capitalism.
It's just capitalism. It's just business. Yeah, I don't know. I've talked with my friends who teach business. I'm not a business professor, but I am colleagues with a few. And they all argue that business should not be ethicless. You know, we should not divorce business and ethics. And good relationships are important for both, because a good relationship builds a business. Bad relationship, your business is going to suck. So yeah, it might appear to be good business practice on the surface, but if it destroys the relationship between the fan and the media producer or the game designer, it's going to kill your company overall. Are people going to keep playing World of Warcraft? Probably, but are they going to continue to bleed players?
Quite possibly.
Quite possibly. Last but not least, victim blaming usually applies to a criminal incident. The argument that we often hear for this kind of treatment is that, well, it's just a game. Come on, you people. Or it's just a comic. It's just a book. You're getting too emotional over your fictional characters. Stop caring so much. Why are you so angry? It's just a bad Star Wars movie. Right? Yeah, it's not a criminal incident, but it still hurts. You know? All right. There we go. Bad communication fans. So we've looked at how businesses can have bad communication. We gave you 4 examples of that. A fight takes 2. What can fans do? And yes, we got misery up here. The Stephen King fans out there. Right? Okay, so here are some examples. We're going to shoot through these a little faster, okay? So I promise we're not going to spend as long on these here.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time. Okay, so first, harassment. Okay, this is not appropriate in any case. This is also illegal. Sending death threats, I'm sorry. So yeah, you don't like the new He-Man. We don't need to send death threats to Kevin Smith. That's wrong. He might be a jerk, but he doesn't deserve that, right? No.
And yeah, that is actually criminal.
And that is criminal. 2, trolling. Yeah, no, it's still bad. It hurts them, it hurts you, it doesn't really build anything. Trolling is behavior that when you're just trying to pull people, you know, you're trying to upset people for your own amusement. That's wrong.
Or make you feel better because you were so upset by this.
Now this one's going to probably be a little contentious.
Yeah.
Review bombing. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, review bombing is a collective group effort where a group of people will gather together and they'll leave bad reviews on Steam or some other website in order to let the makers of the game know something. It could be there's a problem with the game that needs to be fixed, or it could just because they don't like it, right? 2 examples of this are Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos got review bombed because it had lack of certain features and then that were promised. And then The Last of Us 2 got review bombed because it had a gratuitous social message, which it did. But here's a bigger one, Firewatch. Firewatch heard that the massively popular YouTuber PewDiePie said a racist word in one of his videos. And so they pulled all of PewDiePie's Let's Play videos with Firewatch because they didn't want to have anything to do with him, even though it wasn't that video that had the cuss word. Yeah?
What word was it?
I don't know. They wouldn't tell me.
And it's been taken down.
And it's been taken down.
I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet.
Yeah,
I mean, once it's been posted on the internet, you really can't get rid of it completely.
Yeah, I think it was the N-word, but don't quote me on it. But it's one thing that the internet has learned is you do not go after PewDiePie. PewDiePie's fans went on to Steam and they review bombed the heck out of Firewatch. So Firewatch got bad reviews, not because it's a bad game, but because it picked a fight with PewDiePie. Right? Now, review bombing has some benefits. It's a quick way to let the companies know something, and it gets their attention. But is it a good, productive communication that helps support or encourage the growth or development of the game? It kind of hurts it, you know? And so, because you can't take those reviews back, they're still there. They may fix the problems. They may put PewDiePie's videos back up. The reviews are still there. And it's still going to hurt it. So it's not good communication. Or the last one, the sense of entitlement. Yeah. So in the end, the fan does sit on that spectrum. However, we don't know anything. I mean, not anything. We don't know everything about what it takes to make a media product. So not all of us are game designers. So we don't know all the details that are involved in it. And so we might get upset about one thing, but maybe the game designer's hands are tied on it. They can't do it. Like there's a producer who says that, no, we're not putting that in there. Or there's time constraints. They just can't release it on time. Give them a break. If they need to take an extra month to fix some problems, we don't need to call them lazy jerks. We can just say, okay, fix it. We want a good game too, right? You know? I mean, and this happens in every kind of thing. People get upset about something before it even comes out. We should give the game designers a little bit of a chance. I mean, when Michael Keaton was first announced to be Batman, there was an uproar. People said, oh my gosh, no, he'd be horrible as Batman. That's kind of iconic. People said the same thing about Heath Ledger with the Joker. There were people who were pissed because Heath Ledger can't be the Joker. He played a pretty good Joker, you know? So give him a chance, give him a chance. You need to step back from that. So we've been looking at the negatives. These are all bad forms of communication because they're insulting, they're demeaning, they're hurtful, they're dismissive, they're conflicting, they're immature, they're unhealthy, they're needlessly destructive.
They're not constructive. They don't help anything.
They don't help anything. They can lead to producer burnout, money loss, bad public relations, ill will, poor products. The list goes on. And so what does positive communication look like?
Well, at the core of positive relationship in this sense, it's going to be respect. Developers recognize that their fans are people that are worth at least paying a little bit of attention to. Because sometimes they do have good ideas, like when we were talking about with the interaction that you can get, like with Red versus Blue and some of the cosplayers and building. I'm very sleepy.
It's okay.
I lost that train of thought. It's
you
gone.
Lost that train of thought. Okay, so respect is where I think it starts. Respect for the individual, respect for the community, and respect for the media product. The game itself, or the movie, or the book, or the series, the franchise. You need to have respect for all three of those things. Respect has three different qualities. First is value, recognizing that it has worth, right? In an individual level, how do media producers respond to individual responses from their fans? Is it just a boilerplate, or do they actively engage them, right? Do they see them as somebody worth communicating to? As a community, do they refer to their community in terms of numbers and dollars, or do they see them as toxic sheep? A good example of this one actually comes from Final Fantasy XIV. What was it, the Wahi video? What was that one?
Yeah, something like that, the Lahi video. Fans created a meme based off of some of the music in one of the Shadowbringers lands they created. It sounded funny, and so what they did at their fan created convention is the music director got up with an Amada phone. What are I probably butchering the name of that because I didn't write it down. And his accompanist was on the piano dressed in a formal gown and everything, and then he completely butchered it. Like, we know he can sing, we know he's good at music, but they were having fun with it in a way that recognized, hey, we saw that you were making fun of this, we can laugh at ourselves too. And, engaged with the fans that way. And what I felt was positive, and most people thought it was hilarious and great and good fun, good times.
And I definitely value in the media product, right? Mm-hmm. What makes somebody a fan is, they're invested emotionally, psychologically, intellectually. They see some value in it. Something about it resonates with them, right?
Yeah.
It's not just entertainment to them. It's not just a game, it's their game, right? And so it's something that appeals to their personal ethos. if either the media producer or the fan loses that sense of value for it, then that franchise is going to vanish. It's going to disappear, right? So, you know, Arcane and Castlevania are two animated series that appeared on Netflix, and I've heard that they managed to capture the, you know, some of the feel, the mood, the tone of those games in a good way. Other renditions may not capture it nearly as well, right? And so this is particularly important for legacy media that has a long history. So what do you do with that? Do you just say, screw everything that happened in the past, I'm making new ground, baby? Yeah, you know what? You're going to lose fans. Yeah, you really are. Okay, so value. Second is courtesy. We don't teach courtesy anymore.
We should.
We should.
We've got 10 minutes left, so I'm trying to like sum this up really quickly.
Yeah,
be polite. Treat like when you're interacting with individual people, be nice. When you're looking at a group or a company,
definitely be nice.
I mean, it's easy, I think.
I like to use the grandmother metaphor.
There you go.
If you can say it to your grandmother, then it's probably okay. I mean, can you imagine Kevin Smith going up to his grandmother, grow the fuck up, grandma? Right? I know mine would have been horrified. I don't know about his. I don't know. Right? But, use the grandmother rule. That's a helpful one. Right? But courtesy is very helpful.
We have a lot left.
We do. Okay, and last but not least is empathy, care, concern. This is different from sympathy. You know, one frustrated person can do a lot of damage. So does that mean the customer's always right? No, but you should put yourself in their shoes. How would they feel? How would you feel if somebody did something like what you did to something you cared about, right? So you may own it, you may own the media product, and you can do whatever you want with it, but your fans have invested intellectual energy and emotion to it. As such, if you don't care about it apart from your bank account, eventually you're going to destroy it. And they will be upset, right?
And then they'll go somewhere else and take their money somewhere else. I mean, yeah, look at the indie game selection now. There's a lot of other options of games you can play.
All right. Positive. Don't feed the trolls.
So we were going to talk a little bit about trolls and responding to them, and a little bit on how to identify them. We were also, you can ignore them.
Or you can shut the door on them.
I mean, I feel like a lot of media now, like especially if you can have a community, if you have a forum, have moderators that can actually just delete their comments, remove it so they're not even visible. So you don't even have to ignore it. Their message is no longer being shared.
Don't dump all criticism as trolls.
That's true, yes.
You know, identify whether it's a legitimate troll. They're trying to provoke you, right? And then don't feed them. Maybe that means ignoring them. Maybe that means removing them, you know, but don't feed them.
Yeah, that is important. It is a rather dangerous position to think anybody who disagrees with you is just trolling you.
Yeah. Maybe they have a legitimate problem that needs to be addressed. Mm-hmm. All right, develop a thick skin. So you want to be a media producer? You're a striving artist? You want to make your game? You want to make a mark? Guess what? There are going to be people out there that aren't going to like it. You just got to be able to deal well with criticism, develop a thick skin. There's going to be somebody over there that goes, it stinks. You can't and you should not try to please everybody. You can't. You just can't, right? But at the same time, maybe the criticism has some valid. Learn from it. Don't just dismiss it. And definitely set some recognize that, you know, artists do push boundaries. Media sits on a fine line between business and art. Games are business and art. And they're going to push boundaries. Sometimes they push it in stupid directions. And so we need to kind of rein it in, you know? But sometimes they push it in new directions that really make it grow and explode and become something very exciting. So develop a thick skin, but don't be afraid to push boundaries. All right. And last but not least, good communication. Have good communication with your audience, right? Or your fans. Want to do this one? So in the in the end, what's interesting is that a lot of game developers and fans have the same goals. They want to be understood. And they want to support and grow the media product. That's what ties the two together, you know?
Yeah.
And so they don't want to see it fail. They want to see it succeed. So if you have the same goals, how can you make sure that you're communicating well to achieve those goals? Well, first off, have good avenues of communication between the fans and between the game developers. You need to have some way of communication to occur, and good avenues here, right? Don't just let your employees all go on Twitter and badmouth everybody they see. Sorry.
That's not constructive.
That's not constructive. You know, if you're part of a company, you're part of a group, you speak for the group. Sorry, Ubisoft, but your run rogue employee, yeah, kind of spoke for the rest of you. Shouldn't have, but that's what happened. Yep, got it. Active listening. Be sure to not just hear what they say, but show that you've heard what they're saying. Demonstrate active listening. This is very critical. So not just repeating back what they've said, but recognizing and identifying what they've said and what needs to be addressed properly with it. The EA post, I'm sorry, it showed they were listening, but it showed they didn't know who they were talking to. You know, I'm sorry, we are not investors, EA. We don't all think in numbers.
Yeah, that's the kind of post you give to your shareholders, not your general audience.
Or your fans. And mechanisms. Having mechanisms to address problems. Problems are inevitable with any form of communication. Communication professor. You gotta have mechanisms to deal with conflict. You gotta have mechanisms to deal with misunderstandings. You gotta have mechanisms to deal with...
Okay, we have a quick example for that one, where the last week or so, Amazon released a game, New World, MMO game, and there was a bug in one of the more recent game things, and this YouTuber who had been recording videos for it.
This gets complicated, I'm sorry.
Posted or sent in a ticket to get hit hey, this is a bug, can I get some of my in-game stuff back because I didn't realize this, and FYI, this is a thing, it's hurting players. And after communicating, they weren't understanding his complaint. So he said, well, here's a video that shows exactly what happened and what I'm talking about with the timestamp or where it was. And an hour later, he got a cease and desist on his video for IP infringement. He was really stressed out about this. He's like, but I mean, it wasn't like it was an exploitative bug. I wasn't telling people how to exploit the game. I was saying this was going to hurt your character. Don't do this. But I found out about it through an Asmongold video that just happened to come across my path, and he went off on it. Well, he's a bigger name YouTuber, has more followers. Well, Amazon noticed that, and they actually went back, sent him an email explaining the situation. Apparently, they hadn't meant to flag the video. They meant to flag the ad at the beginning, which was for like the equivalent of gold farming for New World. Not the video. So they were in the process of helping him get his video back and flag the right thing.
But communication gets complicated in today's social media
But that
world.
poor YouTuber was freaking out and wasn't going to go pursue this because he thought that Amazon was going to like hate on him and like take down all his videos and he was going to lose his channel and all this stuff.
So we do need to address...
Because there was no good way to address
wrap
that.
This up. We do need to address the elephant in the room, money. Right? It is a business. Game developers, game designers, your business. You're trying to make money. And so, you know, that does mean that even with fans, there is a consumer relationship, right? Now, for fans, that does not mean that our game designers are our slaves and have to do everything we say. The customer's not always right. But at the same time, that does mean that we do expect certain things in terms of quality, in terms of fulfilling promises. So there does need to be a recognition that there is a transaction there and that has an impact. There is a consumer-producer relationship, even if it's a little more complicated than your standard audience. And so we can't just ignore that. I'm going to wrap things up with this one last thing. So how should we talk to one another? How should we communicate with one another? And I think Martin Buber gave a great example of this. He wrote a book back in the 1920s where he defined two types of relationships. We can either treat people as people, or we can treat people as objects. When we treat people as objects, we treat them as numbers, we treat them as money. And when that happens, we will engage in some very unethical behavior. And that relationship is very, very narrow, and it's going to hurt both of us. When we treat people as people, both game designers and fans, then we recognize their basic humanity. And from that, we can develop a stronger relationship with one another. And so that's the kind of communication they need to be aiming for. And that's going to be the most positive. All right, that wraps us up. We're going to stick around, though, because we didn't leave much time for question and answers. We're happy to talk with some of you if you have some questions and answers. Here's the rest of our panels, including the new one that we didn't know we were doing. Right? I managed to slip it in, but I don't have a PowerPoint for it. But we'll still have some fun stuff for it starting tomorrow. But definitely check it out. Thank you all for coming. I hope you have a great MAGFest. Thank you for this first panel. All right.